Hello everyone and welcome to my craft room. I'm so happy to have you here today. Before we get started, be sure that you're subscribed. That way you don't miss out on any of the fun, crafty content we have coming. Now, in today's video, we are going to be using the new Craft Express mini sublimation oven. So you may have seen that I used their larger sublimation oven in a video, and in this one we're going to use this little one, and it's so cute and it's really lightweight, which is one thing that I really like about it. It is easy to move around if you have a smaller craft room like I do. This is super easy that you're going to be able to store it and take it out when you want to use it without having to worry too much about it being super heavy. Now, that being said, it is a little bit smaller, so I'm not able to do more than like 1 or 2 things in it at a time. I could definitely fit 2 coffee mugs, but I could only fit 1 20-ounce skinny tumbler at a time. So just keep that in mind. If you want to do multiples, this one might be a little bit small for you. Now, I am going to link it down below if you want to check it out and grab your own, but you're going to need a couple supplies in order to do this because this is made for sublimation. So you're either going to need to use it with a pre-printed sublimation, or you can print your own, which I'm going to show you how to do because it's really easy and really fun. We're going to make 2 different styles here. And then I do always recommend having some heat gloves. These are really important, especially with the oven, because you are going to be touching the hot rack inside. You're going to be placing your hand inside the oven, so definitely some heat gloves. I also recommend a heat tape dispenser. I've had this one for a while. I really like it. Now, granted, the one I currently have is broken, but I dropped it on the floor like 4 times, so I'm not shocked by that. I dropped it on concrete. So I will be buying a new one very soon. And then you're going to want some butcher paper. And then also, if you are somebody who's done this before, shrink wrap is also a great option, and you can also get silicone wraps to use. I don't tend to use those. I don't have a lot of great luck with it, and I know it's a me thing. It's not anything like to do with the product. It's definitely like me. I'm not very good at it yet. I'm still learning. I don't do a lot of sublimation in ovens. I mostly like to use the press, but I am trying. I'm trying to get better at it. It just takes time, and nobody is perfect. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to show you how to print off these 2 designs. I'll link the designs that we're using below as well if you're interested in them. And then we're going to go ahead and test out this new oven.
Whatever we would do it just for fun.
We're going to use this fun design from Design Bundles. This is a rainbow butterfly mug sublimation, so I think this will work really well to test out that mini sublimation oven. So what I'm going to do is click Download Files, and you'll see that we have 2 separate files. I'm not really sure what the difference is because they're both kind of titled the same, so we're going to just download both of them and see what happens. But I'm going to go ahead and put these into my sublimation folder. So I always keep everything pretty well organized. So I do have a sublimation design folder. And because I don't love the title of this, I'm going to go ahead and change this to rainbow butterfly mug, and that way I know what it is and it's just easier for me. You can retitle any of your designs that you need to. That way it just helps you find stuff better. And then from here, I'm going to go ahead and open that file, and I want to make sure to extract the designs. So all you have to do is click Extract All and click Extract. Once it's extracted, you can close the file that has the pink on the top, which is your zipped folder. And from here, you can kind of see your different designs. So we're just going to go ahead, and I want to use, I think, this one. I'm going to open it bigger just so I can see it. But I like that this one has a lot of color. I think this is going to show us really well how it's going to print. So I think that this one's the one we will use. Now we're also going to be doing a tumbler. I want to test the 2 different substrates. One is a ceramic and one is like a stainless steel. And I just want to test the 2 different types. So right here is this stained glass bee tumbler. I think this is so pretty. So I'm going to go ahead and use this one, and I'll link everything that we're using down below so you guys can find it super easy. But that way we can just kind of, you know, do 2 different things, but with colorful designs. Now, what's kind of nice about this one is it's not extractable. You just have to kind of open it. And look at how pretty that is. I think that is absolutely gorgeous. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to open up, and I like to print through Inkscape, but really print through whatever program you like to use. But I find Inkscape to work best for me. So over here in Inkscape, the first thing that I always want to do is I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to change my document properties, which always opens over here on the side. And I want to change it to US letter. Mine defaults to A4. I probably can change the default thing, but I'd never do. And then this is going to be your printable area. You can absolutely zoom in on it if you prefer to, really up to you. The next thing I'm going to do is go to File and Import. Now from here, you're going to go to the place where you have your designs. So I'm going to go over into my CRICUT folder, and then I'm going to scroll down and get into my sublimation designs. And then I just need to find the butterfly that we use. So we called that one, what, rainbow butterfly? That's the other thing. Try to remember what you call them, because sometimes I forget. But I do believe I called it rainbow butterfly. So here it is, rainbow butterfly mug. And we said we want to use this one right here. It's going to ask you some questions. You don't have to do any of this. Just click OK, because it doesn't really change anything. And then here is your mug wrap. Now, you'll notice that it's going the wrong direction right now. So all you really need to do is just use these little buttons up here at the top, and you just turn it over. Now, you will want to, of course, check the sizing of your mug and what size your mug is for your print. Now, if you want to check sizing here on Inkscape, it's up here at the top, very similar to CRICUT Design Space. And you'll see you have a width, a height, and then this is your measurements. I'm going to change mine to inches. It's just a little bit easier for me if I use the inches because I don't know millimeters. But right here, it's at 4.75 wide, so that would be this direction. So that's how tall your cup is. And then it is 9.75 high, so that's how round your cup is. So I think that's a perfectly well-sized piece. I don't think that's, you know, any change that needs to be made for that because that's about the size of my mug. So what I want to do from here is I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to choose Print. Now, you'll want to make sure that you have your sublimation printer selected, and mine is my ST4000 from Epson. And then I want to do some like changes to my preferences. Highly recommend doing these changes so you get your best print possible. So I'm going to go to Preferences, and I want to make sure that my document size is selected. And then I want to make sure to change my paper type from plain paper. I like to use Premium Presentation Paper Matte. I want to change my quality from standard to high, and then I always just double check the color is on. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to go over to More Options, and I'm going to turn off my high-speed print. Now, if my design had writing on it, I would need to mirror my design, but because I don't really care which way these butterflies face, it's not going to change the way it looks really. I'm not going to mirror my image, but you absolutely need to when you're using sublimation and you have writing or you need something to face a specific way. But because this one doesn't matter, we're just going to go with it as it is. Now you can definitely change some color corrections, but I've got my printer dialed in pretty good, so I don't change any of that stuff. And all I'm going to do now is click OK and send this to the printer. Once you have this one printed, you can simply delete it. You really don't need to keep it unless you really want to, but we're gonna go ahead and import the other one that we did, so the stained glass B. Now for that one, I'm gonna go to my quick access because I know it's gonna be like right here at the top. So I'm just gonna go ahead and select that one and click OK. Now for this one, we're doing a 20-ounce tumbler with a height of 8.8 and a width around of 9.75. So it is gonna be a little bit big, but I think we'll be fine. So the one thing that we're going to do is, again, turn it because it's facing the wrong way. So now that you've got it flipped, I like to do about 8.2 inches wide. So that's going to be kind of how tall your cup is. Usually about 9.3 is about right, but sometimes it's a little bit bigger, so you want to make sure that you're measuring your cup. But I think I am going to go ahead and change this to 9.4. If I need to trim a little bit off, I'm not super concerned about it. I'm not somebody who's going to have the perfect seams. If you want somebody who does perfect seams, I am not your girl. Do not come to me. I'm still working on it. I've gotten pretty good, but I'm still not great at it, so just don't come to me. But we're going to just do this to try out the oven. So if it's not perfect, I'm not super worried. But we're going to go ahead and do the same thing with this. Now, again, no words, so we don't need to mirror it. So again, we're just going to go to File and Print, and we're going to change those preferences to make sure that everything is the way we want it to be. So again, Premium Presentation Paper Matte, High, go to More Options, High Speed, and for this I'll turn mirror on, but it really doesn't matter because it's the same way regardless. Go ahead and click OK and click Print. The first thing that we need to do is to wrap both our tumbler and our mug. We'll start with our mug. I find that one to be way easier, pretty quick too. And I'm going to be using the heat tape from this little heat tape dispenser. Mine does not work great because I dropped it on the floor, but it works okay, so we're just going with it. Like sometimes the tape gets stuck. It's my fault. I dropped it. But sometimes I have to go in and kind of fix the tape. It's okay. No big deal. I just got to go in and kind of pull out tape. All right. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and wrap these. Like I said, we're starting with the mug. So super easy. This is a 15-ounce mug. All I'm going to do is place this design onto my mug, and I want to get it kind of so that the same amount of space is between the handle from the edge of the design. Like that is way not right. There's way too much space on this side and not enough on that. And then you also want to try to get it fairly even top to bottom as well. So this mug is a little bit larger because it does have the tapered bottom, which I didn't realize when I did this. I would have sized this down a little had I known that, but I didn't have this mug in front of me when I made the design, like I printed it off. So I'm not super worried about it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to tape along the edge here. And like I said, see, my tape doesn't cut right. It's because I dropped it. So please ignore the fact that this tape doesn't work right. I have to buy a new one. I just haven't. So what I'll do is I just use my scissors and I'll just cut my tape. It's fine. But you want to tape all along this edge here, and you want to make sure that your design is nice and tight on your mug. Now I don't like to tape it so that it goes around that bottom curve, because I do find that that causes it to get some like wrinkling and bubbling. I'm fine if this little rim ends up with a little bit of color on it. I'm not worried about that. But what I want to make sure is that it's nice and tight around the whole mug itself. Now again, I'm just going to put some tape down, just to make sure that it stays good and tight. You don't need to use a lot of tape with this. You don't want to tape all around the top and the bottom. Some people do. I just don't. I find that I end up getting a lot more problems when I do that with my design just not looking good. So I'm going to make sure that tape is down. I've got a little wrinkle there, so I just want to make sure that that wrinkles out. Actually, I'm going to just replace that whole side of tape. That whole side of tape was just nothing but trouble. So I'm going to go ahead and peel this back off. And again, I'm just going to make sure that this is good and tight and pretty darn straight. Tight is the big key to doing this. You just want it good and tight along there. And then, like I said, I just add a little bit of tape. I don't want it to tape down that edge. I just add enough tape that I can just hold it down. So that should be pretty good for the mug. It's good and straight. I will wrap this in some butcher paper just to be safe. And now we need to wrap our tumbler. Now, like I said, I'm not fantastic. I'm not perfect at this yet because I am still learning how to really get tumblers and their edges perfect. But I definitely have been practicing. I'm getting better. But like I said, this is not something I do on the regular. So I'm going to go ahead and get this lined up. Now, this is a little bit taller than the design. It's fine. We're just going to have a little bit of an edge, but I'm not worried about it. But again, just like every time you do sublimation, you want your sublimation design to be really tight around your tumbler. So what I do is I lay it on its side and I pull it really, really super tight, and then I just put a piece of tape kind of right in that center. Then I come through and I get another piece of tape and I give it a little overlappy lap and I tape it down. This whole time I'm pressing down on the tumbler onto the table to hold it good and tight against the table so that the paper isn't sliding around. There are things that you can get that will help hold your paper tight, but I just prefer to do it this way. I find this way works just fine for me, but you do what works best for you. And this is going to have a little bit of a visible seam because the tape paper is a little bit bigger than the than the tumbler. So let me cut off another piece of tape. I've really got to get a new tape dispenser. I'm so sad that I dropped that one on the floor. Lesson, don't drop it on the floor. So that looks pretty darn tight. We're good. But they recommend shrink wrap on these. I've done shrink wrap and I have not been impressed with it. I actually really just like to wrap these in butcher paper, and I find that it works better for me. But you do what works for you. Not that crafting has to be done the same way by everybody, but you do what works for you. For me, I find that just wrapping this in butcher paper works better than wrapping it with the shrink wrap. So I'm going to cut off some butcher paper. I'll lay my tumbler on it just to get a general size. I don't try to cut these perfectly. They can be a little bit bigger than your tumbler. It doesn't really matter. And then I wrap the tumbler up so that I can kind of see how much butcher paper I need. Because you don't want like a huge overlap, but you also don't want a big gap, and I was about to leave a big gap. But you don't want a ton of overlap with your butcher paper around your tumbler. You also don't want to tape on the same seam because that can actually cause it to not adhere there, like you won't get any print because it's like too much tape. So I try to make sure that my butcher paper is like on the opposite side from where the other tape is. And this is another item you want to make sure is good and tight because it's going to help you keep that paper, the sublimation design, nice and tight. Now I don't put a lot of tape on my butcher paper. I will typically like tape a little bit towards the top, and then I will tape a little bit more towards the bottom, and then that's enough tape for the tumbler. Now that one is good, and then I'm gonna check and see. I don't think it's enough paper to go around our mug, but we'll look anyways. You know what? It is just enough. So we're just gonna go ahead and use the leftover paper from the tumbler to put around our mug. It should be fine if it's not fully covered. So again, I'm just gonna take a little piece of tape, and for this one, I just do it like this, where I just put a piece of tape under the handle. Can you see that? Little piece under the handle, and then I just wrap that butcher paper around, and then I just put it like that. And that's plenty of tape. I don't use a lot. Again, if something else works for you, by all means do it, but this is what works for me. Now, we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna start with the mug. This is the Craft Express Mini Sublimation Oven, and I did move the racks down, so the racks have several places you can move them. I moved them to the lowest because otherwise nothing really fits, because this is much smaller than the other one. Now we have our dial up here and we have our little oven. So what I'm gonna do is plug it in, because this turns on automatically. And now that it's on, you can change the temperature with the little dial here. And you do get a full instruction manual that goes over everything. So I'll kind of read through it just so that you guys can kind of get an idea. So the machine turns on automatically when plugged in. The long press will stop the button, and you hold it for 3 seconds to turn it off. To set our temperature, we just rotate the button. Rotate left to lower and right to increase. So currently it's at 350. I need it to be 355 because we're going to do the mug and the tumbler. To set the time, you tap the time set button, which I can't quite see from this angle, but there we go, time set button. So for the tumbler, that goes in for, I believe, 6 minutes. So we just need to turn this down to 6. And then once you've set that time, sorry, I'm just kind of making sure that I'm telling you the right things. Set the time. All we have to do is, I believe, just press the little button again. Yep, you just press that again, and then we have to start heating. So after we've set everything, there's a little start-stop button. I don't know if you can see it. And then it's gonna go ahead and heat up. Now this does heat up pretty quickly, so I'm gonna let it heat up. We're gonna do the tumbler first. This is 6 minutes, but the coffee mug is way longer. The coffee mug, according to their parameters, is 16 minutes. They do want a silicone wrap around it, but we're not doing that. So it'll be fine. I've done them without it and it's fine. So we're gonna go ahead and do it the way that I do it, because that's just what I know works for me. Now this does get hot all around. The casing gets very warm, so be aware of that. You probably don't want to do this around like small kids, pets, anything that might step on this or rub against it. So it does get pretty warm. I'm gonna let this heat up, and then we'll put our tumbler in, and then we'll be ready to go. Just like with the other oven, it beeps when it's ready. So I'm gonna go ahead and open this up. This is hot, and I'm gonna place this inside. I'm gonna be very careful because obviously I don't have my heat glove on. I'm gonna place that inside, and we're gonna let her go. It's gonna go ahead and count down, and when it's done, I will bring you guys back and show you what it looks like. It's all done, so I'm gonna put my heat gloves on. I let it beep off camera because that beeping was real loud, but I'm gonna put both of my heat gloves on just because it's hot. And then all I want to do is open up the front, and I'm going to take my tumbler out, and I want to set it down onto, I'm using a heat pressing mat right here. So I'm going to set that down. Now my butcher paper came off, no big deal, totally fine. Not real worried about it. I'm going to slide the oven out of the way for just a second, and then I want to show you the tumbler because I hate waiting. I never wait. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that off. And it is really, really cute. Look at that. That came out so nice. I did get a bit of ghosting back here, but this is where it was laying. I think I should have turned it. And I kind of forgot to, so it was my own fault. But where I didn't, you know, mess up, it looks really good. But yeah, I definitely should have turned it because that's where it was laying on the, I don't know what to call that. The grid, if you will. But I think it came out pretty nice otherwise. So it was my own fault that it got messed up. But otherwise, I think it looks really, really good. So I'm going to go ahead and set this one off to the side because we need to bring this back in because we're going to do the mug next. We shouldn't need to rotate that at all because that's able to sit straight up. So what I want to do is, again, I'm going to set this time, and the mug takes forever. I want to double check the mug time. We're using a 15 ounce and it says 16 minutes. So I want to change the time up to 16, hit that timer, and then hit the little go button because it's going to need to heat back up a little bit because this is also heated at 355. And like I said, this one we won't need to rotate because it sits straight up and down, unlike the tumbler. I'm going to let the tumbler cool off, and I will get this all ready and then show you guys me putting the mug in, and then it's going to heat for a really long time. All right, so it beeps for 5 seconds, and then it starts the countdown. So I'm going to go ahead and get this put in, but I am going to use my heat glove because it is hot, and I hope so if I move the mug out of the way. So I'm going to go ahead and place this into our oven. And like I said, this one can stand upright, so I'm not worried about it like getting kind of stuck. But apparently it doesn't want to go in without me pulling out the little tray, which is fine. This is much smaller, like I said, than the other one. So I'm going to go ahead and let this go. All right, it's done. It's gonna beep. We're gonna take our mug out and grab that. And we're gonna close this, and I'm gonna unplug it before I do anything else because we're done using it. So I'm gonna slide this over to the side, and then I'm gonna move the mug back a little bit so you can see. And again, impatience is my name of the game. I never wait. I am too impatient. But for these, I do like to use a pair of tweezers to get the tape off because it's hot. And I don't want to like get it all over my hand. It's just too hot. So I just grab some tweezers. And sometimes I just use my fingers if I have the gloves on. But I'm going to go ahead and pop this off. Maybe. All right. Now we are going to have like a weird ghosting on the bottom because this is a tapered mug at the bottom. But look, ooh, okay, that's hot. That is very hot, but look at how bright those colors are. I'm going to let this cool down, and then I will give you guys like a really good up close view of this because it's a little too hot to hold, and I don't want to like pick it up with the mat. But I think this came out really, really pretty. Before we go, I just wanted to give you a little bit of a closer look at the oven, just so you could kind of see it. I have it off right now, but this is your dial, so you turn it down to the left, up to the right, and then this little dial moves that like kind of rose gold. And then I'll show you the inside, so you have this little handle here, and there's the inside of the oven. Now both of these racks can move, so this is kind of like a little mesh rack, and that's where I tend to put my designs, like my products. And then you have this flat rack, and that one I just put on the very bottom. But you can see you can move the racks a little bit depending on maybe what you're making, things like that. I also use these ovens for shrinky dinks, and they're great for those. And I just think this is super cute. The color's cute. It's a nice compact size, so if you're looking for something a little bit smaller and lighter weight, this is a great option for that. And then let's take a look at the designs that we made so you guys can see how they came out in the oven. I think they came out super vibrant, really, really pretty. These butterflies are so nice, so dark. Now, like I said, we are going to have a little ghosting on the bottom, but honestly, I kind of like it. Because of the way that the bottom is on this one, we just end up with a little ghosting because it is kind of beveled. But then we have our tumbler, which again, the colors look pretty good. I did end up with a little bit of an oopsie back here. This was definitely a my fault oopsie. I should have rotated my tumbler, and I didn't. It's best to rotate them when you're using the oven, and I totally forgot and spaced on it because you can see the part that I didn't rotate is really, really good. Like this bee looks fantastic, but the part that I forgot to rotate looks awful, the part that was down. So definitely rotate those, but I do think that they came out so nice, so colorful. Now I am going to link the oven down below. I will also link the tumbler and the cup that I used, plus all the designs. That way you can find everything you need. All supplies are linked in the description. If you guys have any questions, by all means, leave those in the comments. I'm happy to answer those for you. Be sure that you're subscribed here. That way you don't miss out on any of that fun, crafty content we have. And I hope you all have a wonderful day. And as always, happy crafting.